Welcome to today's episode of Let's Talk Dog Business. Today you're going to be learning some new phrases like mood hoovers and life laundry. Want to know what it's all about? Stay tuned and enjoy the episode.
So I was on one of my dog walks the other day and a little nugget of something popped into my head.
I love a nugget of something.
A nugget of something. I was trying to think of a word that was better than something, but something will do. A little nugget of something popped into my head and I've got my phone out and I put it in the notes and I wanted to chat about it today on this podcast.
Interesting. What is it?
So I feel like it's something that I need to try and figure out for myself, and I wanted to ask you about it as well, so we've got this real big drive to do better and to make not only our businesses better in the dog training kind of day-to-day stuff, but also in the vision that we have for the Canine Business Academy. Do you think that drive comes naturally to you? Is it something that's always been inside of you right from day one, something you're born with, something that's innate in you? Or do you feel like your past experiences of life, jobs, relationships, whatever it is, has contributed to it? Do you feel like maybe it wasn't there at all and it's something that's developed with those kind of things? Because for me, I'm just trying to figure it out really, because I've always had it in terms of running my business. I've always had that drive. So I want to just chat through it and figure it out.
It's an interesting one because actually there's a lot of similarities to dogs, isn't it, when you're talking about their behaviour? Is it learned? Is it innate? That whole like nature nurture type thing.
How much genetics is involved?
Yeah, it's
stuff.
In all honesty, I think it's a mixture and a blend of everything. I think your experiences will absolutely shape who you are as a person. I think who you spend most of your time with will change your view on a lot of things. And I think if you, actually even sticking on that point, I think if you genuinely did a little bit of a summary or an awareness piece of clocking up the amount of time you spend with your fellow colleagues, friends, family, whoever that may be, the people you see regularly enough, what type of conversations are you having? Because if they're all negative, I guarantee you will have more of a negative outlook and mindset. Because how can you possibly be the only bright shining star in a group of negative people?
And that's really stressful, isn't it? It's hard work to try and maintain that positivity in a room full of people who are like mood hoovers.
Mood hoovers. Brilliant.
It's the best. I heard it once a few years ago and it's always stuck with me. And I love that. Mood hoovers.
I like it.
That's what it is.
We need to use that more. Hashtag mood hoover. You've thrown me now. So you're right though, because me personally, I've gone on a bit of a journey of, I don't know what you want to call it, like self-discovery, personal development, all of that over the last few years. And I couldn't really tell you what the turning point was in me wanting to do that. I think, in all honesty, I've met some amazing people along my dog training journey. You know, when like you go to these conferences and you just really connect with someone. You like walk in the room and it's love at first sight. And like, oh my God, like you and I are meant to be.
Like us.
I was just about to say exactly how like we met. And some of those people have just been, to me personally, like really inspiring. They've had amazing businesses, like multi-six-figure dog training businesses. And for all intents and purposes, they're the same as me. And I was like, I just found it fascinating. So I started to hang around with them more. And I couldn't tell you even why, because I don't think it was a conscious effort or a conscious decision of a money drive. I genuinely don't believe it was. I mean, don't get me wrong, like to hear multi-six-figure, you're like, you get that initial, oh my God, really?
Yeah. Sounds unbelievable.
It does sound unbelievable. But then I was like, well, that's not the reason. Like that information came about because of my connection with the person and the conversation that we were having. And then I found more people were starting to do that. And then the more I hung around with those people, I was like, okay then. So And you just start to ask those questions. Okay, so like how have you built that business? I'm not kind of expecting to suddenly go from my £30 an hour all the way to multi-six figures, or if I'll ever get there, because, you know, you have that imposter syndrome around it and you think you get that self-doubt. But it started to open up my mindset, I suppose, to go, you could do this. And I don't even think my background in corporate necessarily made me think I could make multi-six figures as a dog trainer, because even in corporate background, you're still capped at a salary. You know, my salary was decent. It was 65k, I think, with a company car, and sounds amazing, doesn't it? And certainly my family were like, oh my God, why are you giving up that job to go and play with dogs? I was like, well, it's 80 hours a week.
I hear the word corporate and just think of stress.
Yeah, it was stressful.
More so than typical dog trainers say it's stressful.
Well, I did it 15 years. And I thought I loved it, but it's all I knew. So I don't even think it was my background, though, in that made me think you could be super successful in dog training. It was seeing it and hearing it from people that were doing it on the ground, and that I'd fallen into this world of something that I genuinely really enjoyed doing in the dog training and understanding it. So I think by opening up that world to me, I naturally started to surround myself with different people. And then I very quickly realised that my current group of people, so like old friends, family members, they're actually quite negative, or they were for me. And I don't even mean negative in a horrible way of they're no good for me, but their opinions were quite damaging, I suppose. So things like, oh, can't believe you left that job to go and do this. You'll never earn as much money as you did in that corporate job. And it's those little comments that you hear more often than not. And
those limitations just drip into you, don't they?
Yes.
If you hear them enough, they like osmosis, don't they? And they absorb into you. And that's how you start to view the world and go, well, I'm in this, but I can't ever be anything more than what like society says it can be, or other people are doing. It's that limitation thing straight away, isn't it? Of what you can't do rather than what you actually can do and you're capable of doing. Yeah,
no, hugely. And I think I did even turn to like some. I don't recall there being as many Facebook groups back then, so like 10 years ago. I don't recall, I could be wrong, but I wasn't aware of many Facebook groups that existed when you compare it to today, in where you could go and maybe ask a question, or you could go and say, I'm really struggling with the business side of it, or whatever it may be.
And this is dog professionals you're talking about?
Yeah, dog professionals, yeah. I don't recall there being a space to go and do it. And I think more and more groups have popped up now. But for me personally, it's still quite negative. It's still very, if I go in, and don't get me wrong, there's some amazing supportive people out there, and you do get some comments of people going like, you know, hang in there, it gets better, do all of this, and it's worked out for me. And those are really nice, and they are like really inspiring. But I think on a whole, I'd say it's a good either maybe 60-40, 70-30 split on a higher negative side. It's easier to relate to the negative, isn't it?
Yeah. So let's look at the groups that we're part of then. So we're part of a lot of those kind of groups. And then we're also part of a lot of business coaching, mentoring type groups.
Oh God, it's like chalk and cheese.
Oh my gosh. Like I've literally just joined another thing. Joe was like, oh gosh, Vicky, joined another thing. Which is, you know, it's not a negative thing, it's a good thing.
It's good.
But yes, I have joined another thing. And that other thing to me is like, it's just lifted me. My vibrations are all up and I'm just really enjoying it in there. And it's like it's a new group for a new membership that kind of has merged with an old one. So it's like got some new people, fresh people, and some older people that were in it before. And everybody in there is saying, oh my gosh, this group is just uplifting everybody. The buzz is great. And it just got a really nice vibe. And everything that everyone puts, and it might sound like it's a bit too twee and a bit too like, yay, like a bit American high-fiving everybody. But actually it isn't. It's genuinely people are going, well done you. Like that is amazing. Like what you've just done. And it could be something really small. So like one of the posts was, what 3 things are you hoping to achieve this week? So that's usually on a Monday. And then on a Friday, it's accountability time. Have you managed to achieve those things? And if you haven't, what's stopped you? Like, what's been in the way of it? And when people are like, I put an answer to mine saying, I got 2 out of 3. So that's really good. Like, you know, and people are like, yeah, that is brilliant. So you've got to go, okay, so I didn't achieve all of those 3 goals, but I got 2 out of 3. And the reason the third one didn't happen was this was a genuine reason. It wasn't because of what I didn't do. It was because of like external things around it. But like, that's how it feels in those groups. And you go in those groups and you're like, yes, uplifted. And you go into some of these dog groups and you're like, and you can feel your whole body just go, oh, that whole like, you shrunk down, the mood hoovers are out and they're sucking you in. And that's how it can sometimes feel. And like you say, there are exceptions to the rule, but in a general sense, that's the balance is so off, isn't it, of those groups?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I was in one this morning and I think you were commenting on the thread actually. And I think the overall gist was this particular person was wanting to try and do something different in their business. They're trying to see if they can move it to
a new membership or
like
something like
a
that,
membership type. But then you could see almost through that, couldn't you, in going that there's no self-belief in that's actually what they're wanting to do. But then you try and do that supportive thing of, okay, let's pop some comments in and let's see, you know, you could do all of this stuff. But it's almost like it's ingrained. And again, I don't think this is necessarily dog industry solely related. So I think it's across the board in any walks of life. But it's so easy to find reasons not to do something. And I genuinely think that comes from a place of fear. Now, fear could show itself in loads of different ways. It could be fear of, I don't actually know how to do that thing. So a lack of knowledge.
Which was the gist of the post. But then you've got to question, is that the right place to be asking it? Because a lot of those people in that group don't do that and have no clue themselves. So you kind of go, well, there's probably better places you could ask that.
Yeah.
The example being what I've just talked about with the business. Like loads of people, again, from all different industries do memberships. They do them really well. They've done memberships the wrong way and they've realised how to make it better and how to make things easier and the process is easier. So those are the people probably to ask actually for that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, it all kind of draws back, doesn't it, to going, well, who are you surrounding yourself with? What's going to really elevate your life? What kind of life do you want to be having as well? I think a lot of it overlaps, but you almost need to look at it and compartmentalise it and look at it as very separate things and dig deep into all of it. Because, I think taking it back to that original question of like, is it something that's innate in you that you want to do, or is it something that you've learned? Again, I think it is a little bit of a blend, but I do think that as soon as you venture into any walk of life that you're somewhat interested in, and then you start to surround yourself with different people and you start to absorb different knowledge and different information, it naturally opens up new doors. And I think that it will either enhance an innateness in you that is in there but just hasn't had the opportunity to shine
out, draws it out,
or it will create something new in you. So I think for me personally, like I genuinely think my personality is, it's always been quite a big personality, but there are definitely times, certainly throughout the whole of school and like teenage years, I would definitely say I was a shell of myself. I wasn't my true self because I was scared to almost be your true self. You know what I mean? It's, like, it's just easier to blend in with the crowd.
You want to be that middle ground.
Vanilla.
You don't want to be the real extreme people. You like, I was never the popular one. I was never the geeky one, but I was always just the middle one.
Yep.
Sort of blends.
Kind of forgot
camouflage. But,
easily forgotten.
But like gets on with everyone and has different circle of friends, you know, sometimes with them and sometimes with them. And it is that like conformity to fit in sometimes, isn't it? And go, well, this is what we're kind of brought up to be used to doing.
Yeah.
Don't show extremes of anything, else you're going to get picked on, you're going to get singled out, you're going to be, you know, it's shining you in the wrong way. That's how it's kind of like looked at from school and kind of friendship groups at school, isn't it? Yeah. And then that sort of carries on through your employment, I think, a lot of the time, doesn't it? And you have that, like, that fear of being different is right. I mean, this is probably covered in lots of different podcasts of different kind of genres and stuff, but I think it's right to mention it here, because I think as far as a group of dog professionals go, we are scared to do anything different. We want to just fit in with what everybody else is doing, and we want to just offer what everyone else is offering, because that's what you do.
Yep. So I'm too scared to look further afield. Or again, it's a bit more of the assumption that, well, this has always worked, so why shouldn't it continue to work?
But has it always worked? Does it work?
That's it. And again, if you look at other walks of life, well, we'd all be in a very different world if we always just stuck with what we knew at the time. Like, technology wouldn't be where it is now.
No. And actually, a little story about when, like, Joe and I are part of a mastermind, that we're like a 12-month mastermind, and we go for these meetings like every month, don't we? There's something going on where we go to a venue and we've got all different people from all different industries in there. And I'll never forget the very first time that I walked in and felt totally out of my depth. And it wasn't the people in there, it was my perception of what those people in there did and what they would think of me. So I'm a lowly dog trainer. Who am I to be in this room with all these really successful people? Like, I don't deserve to be in this room. That's how I thought for the first hour of that day. I was so like, oh my gosh, this was a bad decision. I've spent all this money and it's not going to be for me. And I feel like this is wrong. And they're just going to be looking at me in that way. And oh my God, within that day, I came away going, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And these people are who I need to be around. And they all just lifted me up. Yeah. And they're so like, oh, what do you do? And genuinely interested. And when you're the only dog trainer in a room full of non-dog trainers, everybody wants to speak to you, and everybody goes, oh, I've got a dog with a problem. We all know, everybody listening to this will go, oh yeah. Always get that. But it was even more different from that. It was like, people are genuinely like, so what are you trying to achieve? Why are you here? What do you want to do that's different from everybody else? I love that.
Yeah. And for me, it's so nice seeing you go on that journey, because when I first met you, oh my God, you've all probably heard this story before, but God, I would say typical dog trainer in that offering a million services, not believing in yourself.
To a point, but not enough.
Yeah, like didn't think it was possible to have a nice work-life balance and earn decent money from it, like be valued for your service in an ethical way. And business world definitely was not for dog trainers.
Right out of my reach. Totally out of my depth.
Like, how on earth is that going to help me? And it's interesting you saying that that's how you felt when you first walked into that type of room. And for me, I remember having so much fear for different reasons when I first immersed myself in that world, because I'd spend a fuck ton of money to get into it. And I was like, oh my God, this is like, what have I done? This is a ridiculous amount of money to spend. What have I done? I've never spent this amount of money before. It's clearly because they're really good at their jobs. They know how to get you. And it was all this negative stuff. And then I got over myself. I was like, right, no, I've invested. I'm going to go and I'm going to put my all into it. And so I didn't have that fear that I didn't belong. I just went in all as like a completely open, and that room didn't scare me. And maybe that is my corporate agency background that helped with that. I don't know. It could also be a bit of that innate personality. But I wasn't afraid to shy away from anything. And I knew that I used to be that type of person that if you're in a group or even in like a conference or something, I'd never be the person to speak out. I'd quite happily sit and absorb the information. Whereas this time round, more so because I'd spent an obscene amount of money, I was like, no, I'm absolutely going to make sure that this works for me. So any opportunity I had to ask a question, I was in. I was like, and I just got over, I don't even know what that fear bit was, but I was in there straight away, like hands up, totally immersing myself in it. And then my business turned over 90 grand within 10 months because of me doing that.
Big, isn't it?
It's huge.
It's a big step. And I've really surprised myself by, I was that person who would just sit and absorb. And I've asked a really like vulnerable question actually the last time I was there. And I was thinking about, do I ask this? Am I going to just open, it's like I'm opening myself out and my life out to people. It wasn't like that deep, but for me, it was like, do I want to tell people this? Do they going to care? First of all, are they going to care? That was my first thought, which is, that's typical Vicky thought. And then secondly, I was like, do I want to share this with people? Do I want to let people in and be vulnerable to people? And do you know what? The support I got back off people, I nearly we both teared up in that room.
Both
and it's like so weird when you think, well, you're in a room full of effective strangers because they're not your busy mates. They're not like when you're in the dog world and you've got you're part of an organisation. You spend every waking minute with those people and you do all this CPD with them and all that. It's not that. It's like we see them once a month, if that. They don't all attend every month, but some people are on Zoom and stuff. But it's that I feel like I can tell these people anything, and I know that they will genuinely come from a place of like love and care with their answers. They're not just trying to make me feel better, whereas that group of other people would probably have just gone, oh, Vicky, it's fine, but not really understanding how that feels for me. And these people are like, I've been there. But like a year ago, I was where you are.
Yeah.
And this is how I dealt with it. And maybe this isn't the way for you. And then another person would comment. And there's literally about 5 people that commented. And I was like, oh my God, guys, thanks so much. And I just felt really overwhelmed with that. And it really was from a place of love. They really wanted me. They knew how it felt for me. And they knew where I was in terms of my journey. And I was just a bit behind them. But I'm still on that journey now. And I'm still learning every day. Aren't I? And I do sometimes have little wobbles. I've had one this week. I've had a word with myself. I'm back in the room.
I also had a word with you.
But it doesn't stop.
It doesn't
stop. You have
stop.
to keep going with it.
It doesn't stop at all.
If I, right, so let's say I went to you, do you know what, Joe? I feel like I'm done now. I feel like I don't need any of that stuff anymore. And I don't need their help anymore. What do you think would happen to me?
You'd be straight back where you were.
I don't know if I'd be straight back.
Because it'd be a gradual process back. I think it's easy to fall back into a habit, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel like I would revert to, I would never go back. I feel like, honestly, I would never go back to how I used to be. But I feel like I'd go back a certain amount. I would undo.
You'd almost, you would naturally... Yeah, you'd naturally kind of like just take your foot off the gas, wouldn't you? And you'd stop that movement. And I think you'd get to a point where, and I do see this a lot with people, they feel like they've almost got what they've needed. So I've been with a particular business group for about 5 years now. And I've seen people come and go during that time because it's a 12-month program. And I've just stayed in it. And the people that I've seen have stayed in it have continued to grow in some way, shape or form, whether that's from a money point of view, but definitely from a personal point of view, and definitely from a work-life balance point of view. And then the money kind of naturally just fits in with that quite nicely. But then I have seen people that do that 12-month stint and they have an amazing 12 months. And then I see them pop up again maybe 2 years later because they stopped and everything just went stagnant and they tried to keep doing everything the same. But times move on. People change, you change as a person. And without that continuous growth and that continuous awareness of yourself, you just can't keep going. And I think it's something that can be quite detrimental to this industry specifically, that a lot of amazing trainers have been in this for a long time and nothing's changed.
Yeah. And our interview with Lauren that we've done, she said, how many good people leave the industry because they can't make it work. Yeah. So it's surrounding yourself with those people. It's leaning into your personality to a degree and finding out more about yourself and going, what type of person am I? Who am I actually hanging around with? And I do think it's a really good exercise to jot down, visualize it, however you want to do it, talk about it to someone. Think about the conversations you're having with people on a day-to-day basis. So that could be clients, like I say, it could be friends. It's people you spend the majority of your time with. Fun fact, you are the product of You are What am I trying to say? You know the little, the little phrase I'm trying to say. You are the product of the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yes.
That's probably not how it should be said, but that is basically it. The 5 people you spend the most time with is how your outlook on life will be.
Yeah, you'll be the average of it. You could be the average salary. You add it all up and you are about the same. So you have to be really aware of who you're spending your time with. And for me, it's something that I have worked really hard on over the last few years, and I've made some tough decisions to get people out of my life. And it sounds really brutal, doesn't it? But I've realised that actually I've outgrown them.
So I think 2 ways about this. I think that it's an age thing as well. So I think as you get past 30, definitely, you have life laundry.
Hearing these things today.
Coming out with them all today. So this is something that me and my husband talk about a lot, is life laundry, and that you've carried these people for a long time in your life, thinking they'll bring something
clearly needed
to
a
it.
good wash. Life laundry.
Oh, I love that. Have you composed yourself?
I'm getting there.
Right.
So yes. Thank you very much to the editing team. We are desperately trying to, I've lost my voice now. We are desperately trying to keep in the laughter, but we will continue. So picking back up.
So when you hit your 30s, you go, done with that person naturally. You have that kind of slide away of certain people. And then I think you also have that mentality of going, do you know what? Those people, or some people do, of going, those people are no good for me. They do bring me down.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And I think you have to be, it's being aware of it, isn't it? It's like you're going to get those ones that naturally filter off. But then you've also got to be really conscious about who and where you spend your time. So for me, it was a massive awakening, I suppose, to go, I love my family to bits, but they're not the best people for me to be around if and when I'm working on my business, because they see it as lots of unnecessary risk I'm taking with investment in terms of getting additional coaching and external support. They see it as it's not a safe job because there's no guaranteed income.
And it's not a proper job.
It's not a proper
Never
job.
a proper job.
I get that all the time.
And it's that outside looking in as well, isn't it? They're not in it like you're in it. So they're never going to know what experiences you're actually having. They're just seeing it from a peripheral sort of position, aren't they?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think I am of the mindset that you absolutely need to get other people in to support you on your journey in whichever way, shape or form that looks like, whether that is a coach, a mentor, even how I started with finding other dog professionals at conferences and just really connecting with them and understanding more about them and how they run their business, and just creating those amazing friendships, which I know a lot of us do, but it's taking it that next step further to go, right, okay, so how can I take the positives from that meeting, apply it to my life, which is in turn your business? Because I think it's also fair to say in our industry, your business and your life are part and parcel, aren't they? You don't tend to look at them as two separate things. No. It just blends into one. So I think the more work you do on yourself and your awareness, including those people around you, you will naturally grow in so many different areas and your business will take on a whole new shape and form.
Yeah, and also go back to the sort of networks and the connections. That's a massive aim with us, isn't it? To try to get, because there are these groups, and we've already mentioned Facebook groups and stuff, but the vibe is really negative. So like our priority is to get that vibe high, because if we're up, people are going to come up with us, aren't they?
Yeah.
So that's what we really want to do to make, I think, a difference in just that element of like what we're doing, is to have a group that is pretty much positive. Yes, okay, you're going to have struggles, but you want people to give constructive advice, a bit like I was in that example that I gave when we were at our mastermind. I want it to be very similar to that. I want people to go, right, okay, so I was having that experience and I think I can help you because I've been there and overcome that. And if they can't answer, we can answer. So I'd really like, that's our aim with this, isn't it? To get that vibration high. And it is if you feel good and you feel positive, good things happen. Like we're reading and listening to some really amazing books at the moment, aren't we?
Yes.
About the law of attraction and manifestation.
We need to do an episode on this.
We do need to do it because we could talk for ages about that on its own. But it's really flipped my thinking, because we do focus on the negative stuff, and that's what we attract.
Yep.
And it's so, I was saying to you on the way here, like it affects your health and relationships and everything, doesn't it? It's not just work. Forget just business and work for a second. Let's just look at life. Like you will attract if you're constantly thinking, I'm never going to find the right person, I'm never going to do this, I'm always on Tinder and is Tinder even a thing anymore? I don't even know. Never been on a dating app, but you're never going to get the right person if you're just constantly thinking, I'm going to just spend my life on my own and I'm going to attract weirdos are on there. All you get is the dregs of what's left because all the good people are taken. It's that same sort of, it's that same thinking, isn't it? And that's what you will attract.
Yeah, which is why all of these community groups are full of, I'm sick of working with these clients, I'm not making a full-time wage, I'm doing all of this. And I'm very conscious that actually we're kind of highlighting all of the negative, but I think it is it's just so prevalent everywhere you go, isn't it?
Yeah.
There is definitely a lot more of it. And I genuinely don't believe it's an intentional thing. And I don't even think anybody's aware that they're doing it.
I just think if they could step away from it and look in, they would probably see it.
That's the view we kind of see it at. So by no means is this like a bashing thing. It is genuinely, because we have done so much work on ourselves and our own mindset, and we surround ourselves with people that are aspiring for greatness in very different ways and different walks of life, you become very acutely aware when there is some kind of offness about something. It doesn't have to be like a person but it's just something, isn't it? Like there's a weird thing that you go, that's kind of just brought me down a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're very aware of it.
Yeah. And back to like, I'm really sort of into like the vibrations and stuff like that. And we are going to get somebody on the podcast that is going to talk about this more as well, about keeping your vibrations high. But if you kind of can get yourself high, you can get yourself high most of the time.
It's true.
If you can keep that vibration high, and then you do have a little bit of that negativity around you, it won't affect you as much as if you're down there anyway, and it will literally suck the rest of it out of you. So I think if you can always just, like Joe said, surround yourself with people that are thinking in a nice, positive way, you're more likely to be able to absorb that and not let it dent you or kind of like knock those hopes and dreams that you've got and those visions that you've got as well. Before we finish this, I just want to touch on, we talked about how much past experiences can affect your drive. And I want to let's quickly touch on past employment. So like you were in corporate, I've done various different jobs before landing where I am now, but I worked in hospitality for my early employment days. And I feel like that made me really resilient, because you get working in customer service, like I worked in hotels and pubs and things like that. And do you know what? I was such a shy, believe it or not, I was really shy as a kid. And I feel like the minute I worked in pubs, you deal with everything. There was so much thrown at you. There were so many different people. Some people are really friendly. Some people are really rude. Some people are like using you as the regulars come in. They used to stand at the bar and their highlight was probably just chatting to somebody for the evening. And, lots about like, I knew what drinks they wanted, what time, you can almost like set your watch by some of these people. And like, I look back to that really fondly, like those days where I worked in sort of locals, pubs and stuff like that. But also the dealing with the shit side of it, like the customer service, you're on reception and you're open to people. Yeah. Like you're the first point of contact. If there's something wrong with their room, they come to you and they shout at you, and you just have to, first of all, crumble, because that's what you would do as a young, young 20-something. And then you just learn to be resilient about that. So I think that drive for me, in a kind of roundabout way, comes from those kind of experiences and gives me that like ability to bounce it back a bit and go, do you know what, if that didn't work, it's fine, we'll try the next thing.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one, because I think I'm quite similar to you in that sense, but I think there is also a lot of people out there that do not find that inner resilience. And they go, it's just too hard, it's too hard, it's too hard. And we walk away. And for me, I think it is very much about, again, leaning into those support groups, finding your people, finding your tribe, finding your network, whichever way you want to look at it, really leaning in on that so that you can learn resilience, but without being fed the story that story has to remain the truth, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So taking the tribe knowledge and really implementing that to improve yourself, which will naturally change that inner part of yourself. So you do create that drive and you do create that resilience. And being open to yourself a lot more, being very, very aware of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great combo. Loved it. I really love that. I don't know whether we've got to the root of the questions, but we've certainly explored them and looked at, I think probably the summary of that conversation is actually, it is lots of factors that depend on
I don't think it's
how
a
driven you are.
simple answer of yes or no, or this is this and this is that. Similar to dog training, actually.
Yeah. And it isn't something that you can just learn to do in a week or a month or something. It's something that's that continuous journey, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, guys, thanks ever so much for listening. If you enjoyed that, don't forget to subscribe and share.